Your car will help support the vets and their families. And guess what? You even get a tax donation. Plus, we'll even come and pick up your car for free. And all you've got to do is pick up your phone right now and make a free call. Now is the perfect time to do something good for the vets. Give back to the vets right now for all they've done for this country. And your old car can really help.
Yeah. I got you. And away we go. Monday edition of the show. A few minutes late. Some technical issues we had to work out. The gremlins were getting into the equipment again. Get out of here. Monday edition of the show all across the country. SportsMap Radio. Worldwide on the SportsMap Radio app. The video version of the show available on Twitch. Twitch.tv/Jason Page 77. We got to come up with a better name for the Twitch channel. And I'm still debating what I want to do with it. What I want to call it. I'm not exactly sure. We got a lot to do over the next 3 hours, as we always do on a Monday. We've got Monday Night Football going on as we speak. 24-10 49ers. Cardinals moving the football as we speak. We will keep tabs on that game. And as always, we will have complete, and I do mean complete, post-game reaction to that game. Whoa, look out. We take care of that. There we go. So we'll have obviously all the post-game reaction to the Monday Night Football game once it is done. Colt McCoy is starting for Arizona. So the Cardinals not sending their finest south of the border. We're sending them the Cardinals B team tonight. We will keep tabs on that game as we go. We'll be joined later in this hour by our good friend Nick Ferguson, who does a terrific job on the NFL, former NFL safety, friend of the show, host of the Touchdown Denver podcast. The Broncos lost again yesterday. Sorry to our friends listening to the show in Denver. But we will get to that coming up in just a couple of minutes. And as I said, Nick Ferguson will join us. We'll get into the Jets quarterback situation, which for a team that everybody was kind of high on just a week ago, all of a sudden now is 6-4. Maybe Joe Flacco is going to be the quarterback. Maybe Mike White's going to be the quarterback. Maybe Zach Wilson's going to be the quarterback. Either way, the Jets are frauds, like I told all of you. But I want to start the show with a bit of a look-see around the AFC and NFC, and just kind of run through where we are, with the exception of one game that is yet to be completed in the AFC and NFC, as far as the real teams are concerned. Start with the Bills. Impressed. Bounced back in a week where their home game got moved to Detroit, had their plans disrupted. They got to go back to Detroit on Thursday, but on Sunday they went to Detroit, beat the Browns there, what was essentially a neutral site game. Yeah, I know a lot of Bills fans made the trip because Bills Mafia is as good a traveling fan base, and you would never think that. And then again, you're like, well, it's Buffalo, and people just want to get the hell out of there, so they'll go anywhere. Sorry if you're listening in Buffalo. So they beat the Browns, did what they were supposed to do. Game never really in doubt. Good win for Buffalo. The Jets, who I'll get to in a little more detail coming up in a few minutes, exposed. They're frauds. We all knew it on this show. I can't speak for what other shows are saying. We knew the Jets were frauds. Are they great defensively? Yes, but you cannot win in this league. Unless you're talking about all-time great defense like the Ravens had when Trent Dilfer was quarterback. And even Trent Dilfer could make a few throws. Zach Wilson is a dud. Capital D, capital U, capital D. And I told you so. And you're welcome if you took the Pats, as I told you to do in Paige's picks, which we went 3-1 on this week. Finally a winning week. Finally a winning week in Paige's picks. It wasn't pretty for the Ravens, but they're 7-3, and they win again. And I'm telling you, they're, if the fly in the ointment in the NFC are teams like the 49ers and the Cowboys because of their defense, the fly in the ointment in the AFC is the Ravens. They're not, I don't think that, obviously they're good at the quarterback position with Lamar Jackson, but, there isn't one area outside of him where they're outstanding or world or any of that. But they figured out a way, the typical trap game, they figured out a way to beat the Panthers. You just take it and you move on. There's no pictures on scorecards. We say that in golf all the time. There's no pictures in scorecards. There's no pictures. A win is a win. You beat who's in front of you. Now, if you start to put up a bunch of ugly wins, well, then you start to question. But the Ravens have plenty of impressive wins on their ledger this year. And again, they have 3 losses, which were all in the fourth quarter in games they led. So the Ravens are to be taken seriously. So are the Bengals, though. They're now 6-4. And again, I get it. A 3-win Steelers team. You'd say it's not impressive. It's a road win in your division. You just take it. They're 6-4. And say this about the Bengals. They haven't even come close to reaching their potential. Missing Chase. I mean, the Bengals are still very dangerous. And again, we're just running through some of these, potential playoff teams in the AFC. And that takes me to Kansas City. Kansas City, here we come. They are the best team in the AFC. Let's get that on the table right away. You like the table reference? It's Thanksgiving around the corner. Getting ready to get the turkey defrosted. You better start that soon. They are the best team in the AFC. They're 8-2. Are they unblemished? No, nobody is. Nobody is. Nobody is without their warts. Let's just say league-wide, nobody is without their warts. The KC loss that still leaves you scratching your head was the one on the road in Indianapolis, but it's a road loss in the NFL, and it happens. And then they have a close loss to the Bills, who they'll probably wind up playing again in the AFC version of the postseason. But Kansas City's the best team right now in the AFC. Not by a long way. I think Buffalo is right there. I think the Ravens are right there. I think all 3 of those teams are capable of beating one another in a one-game situation. And I'll even throw Cincinnati in that equation. That's also a team that's capable of doing some things. And I know I haven't mentioned the Chargers here, but San Diego continues to be a team that's just sort of scuffling its way along. They had the injury to Herbert. You just keep trying to sort of figure it out, 1 week at a time. And I know that, when you look at them, they keep finding ways to lose in these close games. Last night, the latest example of that, obviously, with the loss at home against the Chiefs. The one thing that encouraged you, late in that game, they needed to get a touchdown. They got the touchdown. But then the Chiefs were able to come right back because you leave too much time on the clock. And Patrick Mahomes doesn't need more than a few seconds, as we know, in order to march this team down the field. But you had to be encouraged with some of the things you saw out of Justin Herbert in that game. And because they play in an absolutely craptastic division, the Chargers will probably wind up being in the postseason as a division winner anyway and wind up getting a home playoff game anyhow. So that's where we are as far as the AFC is concerned. Kansas City is right now the team to beat. But by no means are they inevitable. Nobody's inevitable in this league, and I love it. When we get to the postseason, there's going to be a whole bunch of postseason bets available, and any of them is potentially a winner. Every ticket going into the postseason is going to be a live one. Because I think it's going to be as unpredictable a postseason as we've ever seen. All right, NFC. The Eagles, and I said this last week on the show, what I was most interested in seeing was how the Eagles responded off the loss. Not the fact that they lost a game at home to the Washington Commanders and, suffered their first loss. Everybody knew the Eagles were not going undefeated. They were going to lose somewhere. Okay, fine. You lose at home to Washington, who's got a really stout defense, one of the better ones in the league. Yeah, granted, Taylor Heineke is their starting quarterback, but give credit to the Commanders where it's due, especially because they won again this week, and I think they're, 6-4 now? But I wanted to see, how did the Eagles respond coming off of that loss? And we found out. They barely beat a Colts team with a shell of Matt Ryan and a guy named Jeff Saturday who was coaching his second game. Ever. The Eagles are not the best team in the NFC. They will not represent the conference in the Super Bowl. Take it to the bank, I assure you. The Eagles are not going to the Super Bowl. I don't think they're a bad team. I just don't think they're the best team in the conference. And yes, as much as I said every team is live that makes it into the postseason with an opportunity to go to the postseason, the Eagles are not a team I would bet on to wind up representing the NFC. Then you had the Giants, which was one of the most perplexing results of the entire weekend. A team that runs the football, and that's their identity, against a team that cannot stop the run. And instead, the Giants looked like a JV squad at home. Daniel Jones looked like the old Daniel Jones, and the Giants were mauled by the Lions. It was embarrassing. And unlike the Jets, who have the luxury of going to a Joe Flacco if they decide they want to go that route or whatever the hell they want to do at the quarterback position, because Zach Wilson certainly isn't the answer, which we'll get to in a couple of minutes. The Giants, their future is locked, at least for this season, to Daniel Jones. And the Giants are probably a year ahead of schedule anyway, but that was a very disappointing effort this weekend. Dallas, not possible to be more impressed. As bad as the Giants were at home on Sunday, Dallas was that on the impressive side. They were the complete opposite. That effort coming off the loss in Green Bay, sometimes those things can go one of two ways. Really good or really bad. And they came off of that loss in Green Bay as good as you could against a supposed contender. And we now know why Vikings number one fan Craig Kilborn, who was on the show last week, said he still wasn't sold. And again, that is Vikings fan number one. San Francisco is playing as we speak, so that is TBD. 49ers with the football, third quarter, about midway through, 2nd and 12 on their own 39-yard line. They lead Arizona 24-10. You got a thought on Week 11 in the NFL? Let's hear it. 1-800-224-2004. Give me the best team in each conference. Just give me one team in each conference from anywhere in America. 1-800-224-2004. 800-224-2004. Right now, I give you the Kansas City Chiefs. I didn't give you one in the NFC, did I? I gave you the Kansas City Chiefs, and I will give you, get ready for it, the Dallas Cowboys are the best team in the NFC right now. Kansas City and Dallas. I'm not saying to go get your Super Bowl tickets if you live in those cities. But based on what I saw, and I know people are going to say that's not fair to Philadelphia. They beat Dallas. Yes, they beat Dallas with Cooper Rush at quarterback. Now, if they beat Dallas the next time those two teams meet up, we'll have a different conversation. Because they did not beat Dallas the way that Dallas is currently constructed. And by the way, by the time they play him next, well, it might be a bit of a stretch. But by the time they play the Eagles and Cowboys play next, There might be a guy named Odell Beckham Jr. on that Cowboys team. And boy, how that could potentially flip that matchup and potentially the NFC sort of playoff picture on its head. If OBJ, who if he watched Daniel Jones yesterday, I don't see, if supposedly Odell Beckham Jr. was trying to decide, all right, am I going to the Giants or I'm going to the Cowboys? If he watched yesterday's games, there's no way he could pick the New York Giants. There's no way. If it's about winning and winning another Super Bowl, there's no way he could pick the Giants. He'd have to pick the Cowboys. So I got the Cowboys and Chiefs atop each respective conference. Who do you got? 1-800-224-2004 from anywhere in America. 800-224-2004. Hit me up on Twitter at the back page. We'll update you on the Monday Night Football game. We'll give you the live betting numbers on it and maybe a pick. And we'll talk about the Jets. Has their head coach given up on Zach Wilson? I sure the hell would. We're coming back with more on the Cash In. It's SportsMap Radio. Do something. Well, it's on the verge of getting out of control in Mexico City. Monday Night Football south of the border. You're not going to win with Colt McCoy. You're just not winning with Colt McCoy at quarterback. I mean, all the power to him. He's the only one from that draft he was in that's still in the league, but you're not winning football games with Colt McCoy as your starting quarterback. Nick Ferguson from the Touchdown Denver podcast, former NFL safety, will join us coming up in about 10 minutes. Get some thoughts with him around Week 11 in the National Football League. Arizona trails the 49ers 24-10, and Arizona's on the verge of dropping to 4-7. I don't think they're going to fire Cliff Kingsbury with, Colt McCoy as the team's starting quarterback right now, but you're on the verge of another lost season in Arizona with the Cardinals. And if not now or next week or the week after, you get the sense that the writing is on the wall with Cliff Kingsbury. There's only one Sean Payton, and you can't split him amongst all the teams that are going to potentially want him and his services in this offseason, but there's going to be a lot of There's going to be a lot of coaches on the unemployment line when this season is done. Now, I'm not saying necessarily now, or there's going to be any more mid-season moves, but I don't know, maybe Nathaniel Hackett, but I can't imagine them firing him mid-season in his first season. They might let him go after the season is done. He's now given up play calling duties. We'll get into all that with Nick Ferguson. So right now, here's what we got on the live betting side. San Francisco leads Arizona 24-10. It's 49er football. They've got great field position to start this drive on the Arizona 38. And a 2nd and 1 coming up, so they started out around midfield. But Arizona leads 24-10. The live betting line is 17.5 to Arizona. I mean, I'll give you the money line. I don't think anybody's going to touch it, but 2,500 towards Arizona. So if you wager $100 on Arizona right now on the live money line, you'd win $2,500 if they somehow came back and won this game. It is the NFL. Crazy stuff happens. I don't think that's going to happen. The total is where I would be looking right now, and that's 47.5. That number is 47.5 in a 24-10 game and still almost 19 minutes of football to play. Sorry, I thought I was going to sneeze. So 47.5 is the number we're talking about. And if it's me right now, well, now it's up to 49.5. Now it's at 49.5. When it was at 47.5, I was leaning towards the over. At 49.5, I'm probably looking at the under. Yeah, I got to say right now, San Francisco's driving, 1st and 10 on the Arizona 24. 49.5 is the number. That's a tricky number. I don't feel comfortable with it. I'm not going to bet it right now, and I'm not going to tell you guys to bet. We give you a live bet when we have one. I'm not giving you that one. I can't do it. I'll look at an NBA game if I have to, but I'm not crazy about the live betting numbers on this game. Nothing I feel comfortable with, and if I don't feel comfortable with it, I'm not going to give it to you. All right, we'll come back to the live betting. Can I just make a point about the Jets and probably the most Jets-type loss in the history? And I don't use these words lightly. I'm not one that's prone to hyperbole. This might be the most Jets thing that's happened to the Jets.
The snap, waist high, pressure-free punt, and it's a good one, forcing Jones to backpedal right side at the 16. Stabs left, ran it right, down the sideline, to the 40, to the 50, slides left to the 45, beats the punter to the 35-30. Marcus Jones down the middle of the 10, into the end zone. Touchdown! No flag! Touchdown! Patriots!
Nothing worse than an analyst stepping all over the play-by-play guy, by the way. I don't know if that was Scott Zolak or who's doing the games on the Jets, Patriots radio network these days, but arguably, you can't jump all over your play-by-play guy. Oh, the point. Patriots Radio Network on the call. The Jets lose in the most Jetsian way possible, 10-3 to the Patriots on Sunday on that kick. And all I heard from Jet fans and all I saw on social media, and it's so typical of this organization, So typical that what they're mad about is you should have been 3 different potential blocks in the back on the punt return. Somebody tackle the guy. That's it. Make a tackle, and we're going to overtime. Somebody, anybody. But the Jets are the Jets. And while Robert Saleh's been busy taking receipts, I'm taking receipts on who's down on our Jets. And while Zach Wilson's all getting high on himself last week, sniffing his own stuff, you guys don't know what you're talking about. I learned from that game the first time when I threw a bunch of interceptions and made a few bad passes. You guys don't know what you're talking about. Oh, humble pie. Oh, sometimes it must taste so bad. And for Zach Wilson, this humble pie had to taste as bad as it gets. Oh, sour. And you got to eat every bite of it. You're just strapped to the table, strapped to the chair. You cannot leave the table. You have to eat that humble pie. That's Zach Wilson right now. Eat it. Every last bite, you eat it. Somebody's got to even spoon feed it to him. I don't care. Because this kid last week was smelling his own stuff and thought that he was beyond reproach, despite the fact that he's accomplished next to nothing, despite the fact that statistically he is one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. And he wanted to tell you that you don't know what you're talking about. And now he may find his you-know-what on the bench. We'll come back, talk about it all with Nick Ferguson, Touchdown Denver podcast. He joins us on the cash-in. I'm Jason Page. Glad to have you with us on SportsMap Radio and the SportsMap Radio app. All right, let me get Nick Ferguson on. We roll along on this Monday edition of the show. And remind you, if you haven't done so yet, go and sign up for playfortickets.com. Playfortickets.com, free to play, free to sign up, free to try it out, and free, potentially 2 tickets to the biggest game in football and $50,000 cash in your pocket. All you got to do is go to playfortickets.com, click on the Super Pick 7 contest, easy for me to say, and all you got to do is pick the correct side and totals on Sunday for 7 games. It's that simple. Use your football expertise each week to have a chance to win 2 tickets to football's biggest game in Glendale, Arizona this February. $50,000 cash in your pocket, 21 and over to play. Terms and conditions apply here on the Cash In. All right, let's bring in Nick Ferguson, who does a terrific job, the Touchdown Denver podcast, all things football with him. Oh, well, somebody had to pay the price for the latest Broncos loss, and apparently it was Melvin Gordon.
Well, yeah, this was a long time coming because Melvin has put the ball on the turf several times, and these have all been in key situations. Go back to how the Broncos started off the season, and with Russell Wilson returning to Emerald City, and the Broncos had an opportunity to put that game away 2 times in the red zone, 2 fumbles, and Melvin Gordon was on the end of one of those fumbles. And then you go back to the game yesterday against the Raiders, and it seemed as though the deck was stacked against Melvin, and maybe at times he was pressing a little, but sometimes, it's bad luck. He caught a pass out of the backfield, and he bobbled that reception, and then there was a pickup that both he and Cam Fleming missed on Max Crosby, which got Russell Wilson sacked. So you had that, to add to the list of things. And then with the Broncos threatening right before halftime, knowing as though they were going to get the ball back and they could have gone up, 17-7 on the Raiders, he put the ball on the turf. Quinn Miners jumps on it. Right after that, the field goal is blocked. Even though the field goal being blocked wasn't his fault, some fans still blame it on him because if he scores or he holds on to the ball, the Broncos are never in that situation. So just tough outing for Melvin Gordon. I hope he lands on his feet because he's a good guy.
Let me ask you something. I wasn't even going to ask you this, but I'm just thinking about it as you're talking about Melvin Gordon being let go. What's that feel like? What does it feel like to be let go?
It's not a great feeling because, for Melvin, you can see the writing on the wall. It was just a matter of when it was going to happen based on the number of running backs that the Broncos actually brought in. But to experience that, man, it's a tough deal because it's one thing to experience that being released during like the preseason or something like that because you know that it's going to happen. You just figure that once you make it to the regular season, man, it's all peaches of cream from there. But to have someone call you on the phone, knowing as though it's an off day, and you're thinking, okay, why are they calling my? And it's like, hey, Jason, hey, how's it going? Because it always starts off like with peasants, right? So they got to soften you up before they deliver the final blow. And it's like, hey, Jason, how's it going? Hey, what are you up to? Okay, listen, we're going to need you to stop by the facility. Coach wants to have a conversation with you. Usually when you hear that and it's an off day, you pretty much know what's going on. So you playing or you going through it over your mind like, okay, what are they going to say? Are they going to give me another chance? Are they going to demote me? But being fired is the ultimate demotion, and it absolutely stings, man. Your heart goes from your chest to the floor, and you're sitting there right across the table from your head coach or maybe and both, Mike, let me set it up this way. Their desk is higher than yours, right? So you already walk in with looking really smaller to them, and then they deliver that news, and you shrink in your seat because you're just like, man, I thought I was going to be able to turn it around. But these are the things that happen when you're on a struggling team and you continue to fumble the ball.
I'll tell you what. About 4 years ago, roughly, I was working at a radio station in San Francisco, and new management came in, and I was the last person hired by the old program director. New PD comes in and gave me about 2 weeks. couple of shows, and I knew before, even anybody told me, I knew that I was going to be let go. The last hire of the old regime always gets cut. And I literally got cut. I literally got hired the day the PD got fired.
No.
Oh, yeah. I got hired. The day I went in to go sign my papers, they said, oh, he's not here anymore. The broadcasting business is awful. But so 2 weeks went by, and not to equate this to sports, but I get a call on a day I'm not working. Hey, we need you to come into the office. Matt wants to talk to you. So I I beat them all to the punch. Here's what I did. I got into the building. I walked around the building and said all my goodbyes because I knew what was coming. So I went in, saw all my friends, all my peeps there. I walked in, I said bye to everybody because I knew the second I went into that conference room, they were going to let me go and escort me out the building. So I said, I'm going to go say goodbye to everybody now because I know what's coming. And they were all like, what are you talking about? They had no idea I was being let go, but I knew. So I walked into the conference room. They let me go. Sure as you're born. So I kind of get it. I've been in that position a couple of times in my career, 25 years. So Nathaniel Hackett, is he the captain jumping ship on the Titanic, or is he, rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic by giving up the play calling responsibilities? What is it?
Well, at this point, he is rearranging the chairs on the deck. The ship is sinking, and he still is trying to show, okay, well, I'm in charge, and I'm delegating responsibilities to individuals, knowing that, hey, catastrophe is waiting around the corner. So right now, he decided to hand over play calling responsibilities to Clint Kubiak. Now, I'll say this. I figured that Clint Kubiak should have been named the offensive coordinator from the outset, and here's why. When you think about what Clint Kubiak was able to do with Kirk Cousins in 2021, to me, the proof was in the pudding. Kirk Cousins threw for more than 3,000 yards. Dalvin Cook was over, maybe 1,500 yards, or maybe 1,200 yards on the ground, and he had some pass reception touchdowns as well. So here's a guy who went from being a quarterback coach, working with Kirk Cousins, to being an offensive coordinator. And oh, by the way, there's not a person who's more familiar with this system than Clint Kubiak, because when his dad was the offensive coordinator, he was the quarterback's coach. And I know, I get it. When you think about Nathaniel Hackett, he was in Green Bay as the offensive coordinator. I'm giving you air quotes, with Matt LaFleur. But Matt LaFleur was calling the play. So when we look at where the Broncos are now, it's like, okay, well, what's going on with the play calling and the design? And can you make in-game adjustments? And this is where Coach Hackett needs to just be a head coach. Because head coaches who try to be the defensive coordinator, like Vic Fangio did, he wasn't paying attention to the offense, and his clock management was terrible. The same thing is happening with Nathaniel Hackett. So the idea is, you are a head coach. Delegate responsibilities and lean on your coaches.
Nick Ferguson, our guest, former NFL safety, host of the Touchdown Denver podcast, knows what it's like to be released. So do we all. Gives us a few minutes here on the show today. I have declared in the first segment of the show tonight, I have declared that through Week 11, the two best teams in the NFL, out of the AFC, it's Kansas City, and out of the NFC, I'm going with Dallas. Agree or disagree? Yes, I think it is. I think it is Dallas in the NFC, and I'm projecting ahead, but I actually think they're going to get better because I think OBJ's going there. If his two choices for teams right now are the Giants or the Cowboys, and he's choosing anybody other than Dallas, he should have his head examined, because there ain't no way you want Daniel Jones throwing you the football, because he can't throw you the football. He's too busy throwing it to the other team yesterday.
Wait a minute. So this turnaround, because last time I was on the show, we were talking about the team that's the creme de la creme of the NFC was the Minnesota Vikings, right? Now it's because the Vikings laid an egg to the Cowboys. Now you're going, hey, I'm waving the banner for the Cowboys who lost the previous week to the Green Bay Packers, and everyone was like, what's going on with Dak Prescott?
I got two things for you here. one, Minnesota, I wasn't sold on until they won last week. And it took me, till they were 8-1 or whatever it was to be sold on them. But then I said, I want to see. There were so many interesting bounce back games that I wanted to see this week. I wanted to see how the Eagles bounced back against Indianapolis. I wasn't impressed. They barely got out of there with a win. I wanted to see how the Cowboys bounced back off the game against the Packers.
Right.
And then I wanted to see how the Vikings and Bills bounced back off of that game. Buffalo showed you they're still for real. And the Vikings the Vikings have played 3 good teams this year, and they've been dusted by 2 of the 3. So I'm sorry, I just can't go there with the Vikings. I think Dallas and San Francisco, I'll still stick with those 2 teams that I think, if healthy, I think those 2 teams are the 2 most dangerous teams to come out of the NFC.
So because with Dallas, obviously Dak had a better game, but more importantly, you look at Tony Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott. Both guys were great on the ground, but Tony Pollard continues to impress, showing as though he can catch the ball out of the backfield as an extra wide receiver. Because when I look at the Cowboys, that's the one thing I feel as though they're deficient on. As far as wide receivers, outside of CeeDee Lamb, it's like, who else do you have? And you're right. If they add OBJ, a healthy OBJ to the mix, and he's able to kind of understand the philosophy of the offense, now it definitely makes them somewhat of a threat. But I don't know if I'm ready to commit fully to the Cowboys. See, right now, you're sounding just like Jerry Jones is whispering in your ear right now. That's what it sounds. He's whispering sweet nothings in your ear.
All right, but wait a second. If I forced you to pick one team from each conference right now, who are you picking?
Well, you know what? I'm still going to go with Minnesota because they showed that they.
No.
But wait, it's one game right now.
Their defense is terrible.
Right. Okay. But once again, it's like, can you outscore the opponent? And what we've seen from Minnesota, they were able to go toe to toe with Buffalo. Like you said, Buffalo is probably your team in the AFC.
Kansas City. It's Kansas City.
Right. You take Kansas City over Buffalo?
Yes, I do.
Wow.
Especially if they have home field.
Well, see, I'm thinking Buffalo's going to have home field because Buffalo already beat Kansas City.
Yeah, but they have 3 losses. Kansas City's only got 2, and Kansas City's playing in a garbage conference. I don't know. I'm just saying.
Well, that makes things interesting. For the sake of argument, let's say Buffalo has to return to Kansas City, right? They already know they should have beat Kansas City last year. Mm-hmm. They went in Kansas City this year, and they beat them again. So they have no fear. The only idea is that, hey, you finally need your defense to get you 1 or 2 stops in that game, and you lean heavily on the run game of Josh Allen, and you win the ball game. I'm still going to go with Buffalo.
All right,
because Buffalo
right now, so right now it's Buffalo and Minnesota for you. Minnesota. Oh, not Minnesota.
That's one game, man. Just one game. Now, come next week, this may be a different discussion because now we're trying to see if Minnesota can pick up the pieces like Dallas picked up the pieces after losing to Green Bay. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah. By the way, San Francisco is dusting Arizona tonight. Nick Ferguson, listen, I enjoyed it. Have a great week. Now I may have to call you. I've been trying to only call you every couple of weeks because I don't want to bother you too much. But now that you said next week it might be a different story, now I might have to call you next week to see if it is indeed a different story.
Well, you know what? The one thing about the NFL from week to week, every team writes a different story. So call me next week. If the narrative has changed, and now you're back on the Minnesota bandwagon after some catastrophe happens with the Dallas Cowboys. Who knows? It's possible.
Have a happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy it. Hope all is well with the family. Thank you, sir.
All right. Same to you.
Nick Ferguson joining us on the show. We'll come back and wrap up the hour next. You're funny. You are funny, dude. We'll see. See what happens.
Well, you know what? Now
All right. Do you believe? You know what I could go for right now? Like the terrible to slate at night. Nachos.
Defrosting chicken. I took it out and I was running in the microwave to defrost it, but then you started the show, so it's just sitting on the counter. How long more to your break?
Should have done it 4 minutes ago. It was a 6-minute break. This was the long break.
Okay, it can sit on the counter for a few more minutes.
Another hour of the show starts right now on SportsMap Radio and the SportsMap Radio app. Hello to our friends in Dallas, 97.1 The Freak. Start of the show for you. If you missed it in the first hour, well, you really missed out because you got to tell them to carry all 3 hours. That's what you got to do. With all due respect, I mean, you're missing 3 hours, or missing an hour. So anyway, I kid because I care. I did say in the first hour that through week 11, the two teams to beat in the NFL, one of the NFC, one of the AFC. My two teams to beat right now, after this week, Kansas City in the AFC, Dallas in the NFC. I'm there. I am all the way there now on Dallas. And I know somebody's going to say, you're prisoner to the moment because of the drubbing in Minnesota. You're prisoner to the moment. You forgot they lost the week. Yeah, they lost in overtime on the road to Aaron Rodgers. In an uncharacteristically bad performance defensively. And Mike McCarthy making a boneheaded decision on fourth down. I mean, I get it. But Dallas, to me, out of all the teams in the NFC, and I know people, we just had this conversation with Nick Ferguson last hour. For those of you that Gary all 3 hours of the show. We just had this conversation with Nick Ferguson in the last hour about the fact that the Eagles, added a guy like Ndamukong Suh, and you saw him get a sack yesterday, albeit against Matt Ryan, who's basically a statue standing in the backfield and is just waiting to be tackled. I get it. But if you missed the first hour, you missed me proclaim Dallas as the team in the NFC. Now, maybe I will wind up being disappointed by them and come the postseason. Who knows? I might not even be there by the end of the year. But right now, I'm there on Dallas. Dallas and Kansas City are my two teams out of the NFC and AFC. San Francisco, very impressive tonight against a beat-up Cardinals team, though, 38-10. We're back with more of the cash-in. I got some thoughts on the World Cup. I got some things to say, and you're going to listen. SportsMap Radio. Stay tuned. Just occurred to me, I have given out the phone number only once tonight. Just occurred to me. Heroin and meth. Heroin and meth. Da 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 da. Oh, interception in the end zone. No, there's the over. Oh. Well, glad we didn't make that bet. I was like, the over's looking good. Yeah. No, but it would have gotten the over. That's why if you don't feel it, you don't make the bet. That was the backup to Colt McCoy, Trace McSorley, who sorely needed to not throw an interception there. Funny man. Mexico City never looked more beautiful. Paul wrote me. He said, how'd your ball? Let me tell you, if I had had the live betting over just now at 49.5, I would have lost my you-know-what. Because Trace McSorley was driving Arizona down the field for the backdoor cover on that bet. And then he promptly throws an interception in the end zone. No field goal, no touchdown, no soup for you. No soup for you. And instead, the game will go under that 49.5 live bet. Again, there was a 47.5 live bet. And there was and that was at 24-10. And then there was a 49.5 live bet, which will not cover. It doesn't matter. San Francisco is going to win 38-10 to improve to 6-4 on the year. And, you look at the standings, and I'll get to the World Cup here in a second. Because trust me, if you're a World Cup fan, you're probably not going to like what I have to say. But NFL standings after this week, Seattle and San Francisco will both be 6-4. As you would expect, they're the two best teams in the conference. Arizona will drop to 4-7. Their season's just about on ice. The Rams are 3-7. Tampa Bay continues to lead the NFC South at 5-5, but there is Atlanta, and I picked Atlanta to win that NFC South. I'm sticking with them. They won yesterday, beat the Bears, an improved Bears team. I'll get to Justin Fields a little later on in this hour. But Atlanta improves to 5-6. New Orleans 4-7 after a win yesterday. And then Carolina pulling up the rear. NFC North, it's still all Minnesota. They're 8-2. Everybody else stinks. And the NFC East, after yesterday, the Eagles get some breathing room now. They're 2 clear of Dallas and 2 clear of the Giants, with Washington at 6-5. And again, that whole division is still above 500. And if the playoffs started today, all 4 teams from the NFC East would be in the playoffs. That is remarkable. That is absolutely remarkable. You just never see something like that this late in the season. That's amazing. So that's the way the NFC looks. Over in the AFC, Miami and Buffalo are both 7-3. Miami holds the tiebreaker over the Bills. They'll play again later this season. The Patriots and Jets are both 6-4. So that division continues to certainly turn heads. And, look, I think the AFC East might have 3 playoff teams as of now. Baltimore 7-3, Bengals are 6-4, and then the rest of the division's garbage. AFC South, Tennessee is 7-3. Everybody else is 3 games back or more. And then Kansas City at 8-2, and the Chargers are hanging around on the fringe of that wild card spot. They're 5-5. So there you go. That's all you need to know about the divisional races. So I look at FIFA and the World Cup going on in Qatar. Make sure you say it right, not Qatar, like I always like to say. It's Qatar. You got to put the emphasis on the tar. FIFA, let's just put this out there. Before we get into anything about the match day between the United States and Wales, and I'll get into it for a couple of minutes to the best I can, because I'm not going to fake it and act like I'm some soccer enthusiast or I know a ton about the World Cup. I know what I'm watching, and I know enough to give you an analysis of what I saw that's, I think, somewhat educationally factual or based on observational fact or any of that stuff. But I'm not going to sit here and pretend I'm, Giorgio Canaglia or whatever. I'm not going to do that. But I think we need to, if we're going to have a conversation about this World Cup, And I'm not doing a show about social justice, and I'm not doing a show about gay rights or women's rights or human rights or any of that stuff. But I sure as hell know they matter. So let's start here. FIFA makes the NFL look like Mother Teresa. And you all know what I think about the NFL, which is one giant mafia house of cards that one day could just get blown over if somebody decides to spill the beans on what's going on. Right? We all know that. FIFA makes the NFL look like Mother Teresa. And we all know by now how dirty and sullied the NFL's hands are. That's why they've got lawsuits and all this stuff, and they don't want to open up any books or show any emails or any of that stuff. But if I'm telling you that FIFA makes the NFL look like Mother Teresa, that tells you how blood-soaked FIFA's hands are. It's almost, the World Cup being held in a country like Qatar would almost be like saying, you know what? We're going to hold the biggest civil rights march on a golf course at Mar-a-Lago. Then it would be FIFA. If the United Way was like, we're going to hold the biggest civil rights march. Or if the NAACP said, we're going to hold the biggest march in our history. We're going to do it at Mar-a-Lago. Right on the course. Thank you, Donald Trump. It's that kind of stupid that Qatar even got a World Cup. They didn't have any infrastructure. They didn't have anything that granted them the right to have it. They got it because they paid for it. Like a bunch of mafia mobsters. That's it. Case closed on it. They used slave labor to build the stadiums. Their human rights record is atrocious. They should have never been. It's a reward to have an event the likes of a World Cup or an Olympics in your country. And now we've seen both of those bodies, the IOC and FIFA, bend over and take it you know where from nations that had no right hosting those events. Period. Case closed. Neither of those countries, not Russia, not Qatar, not China, none of these countries have earned the right to have the world as their stage for these kinds of events. Yet they got them. And it's not because they do things the right way. It's not because they're promising they're going to do better next time. We're going to be more transparent and open and inclusive. No, it's none of that. It's because of money. Nothing else. So before we talk about this World Cup, before we talk about all the glitz and glamour and nations fighting to be the best soccer team in the world, and it's all so great, I'll watch it. But I'm not going to pretend it isn't dirty as you know what. Because it is. It's disgusting. And you may not want to say it, and you may not want to hear it. You know what? Change the channel. I'll invite you to. But it needs to be said. And now I've said it. Oh, yeah. There was a match today involving the United States. Them and Wales finished in a 1-1 draw. I watched it. I think I know what I watched. United States looked great in the first half. They probably should have had a couple of goals. They were dominant in that first half. They controlled the action in the Wales end of the field. Got a goal. Wales couldn't get much going. And then in the second half, it was almost like Wales said, hold on, wait a second. We're better than this. You get a PK. Gareth Bale. Game finishes in a 1-1 draw, which is another reason I can't stand soccer. Beyond the corruption of FIFA. There should be no draws. There's winners and there's losers, especially at this level. If you want to have draws in, Premier League or MLS or whatever, the La Liga. If you want to have draws there, knock yourself out. But it's the World Cup. You play till somebody wins. Because then in the draw scenarios, you've got all these different problems where goal differential becomes the key. And now the U.S. has to play this game against England and just play not to get blown out. You know they're probably not beating England. Let's be honest about it. Let's keep it 100. Let's keep it a buck, like the kids like to say. But you know the United States is going into that game as a pretty significant underdog, right? I don't even see a line available on that game yet. Not that it matters. But let's just say the United States is going to be a significant underdog against England, who is expected to come out of that group play in that particular group as the number one team. Question was, could the United States be better than Wales? And now what's going to determine that is what they do basically against Iran and England. And in the case of England, you know you're not going to win, so the goal is just don't get blown out. Because then it makes your task against Iran that much more difficult. And you're also at the mercy of how Iran plays against Wales when those two teams meet up. To give you some perspective, England beat Iran 6-2. And by the way, not to go all crazy on the human rights stuff, but major props, major cojones shown by the Iran men's national soccer team. Did you know when the national anthem came on, they did not sing it? They all just stood and held each other, and they did not sing the national anthem because of all the, again, human rights abuses going on in Iran, protesters being killed, protesters being locked up in that country. And the Iranian soccer team did not sing for the national anthem. Did not recite it, nothing. So kudos to those guys. Regardless of the outcome, winners in my book. Did you watch the World Cup? What did you think of it? What did you think of the U.S. in game number 1? I like the youth. I like the athleticism. I don't know if they're going to get out of group play or not. It's just good to see the U.S. back in the World Cup after 8 years. I was sitting there on the couch watching the game. I got fired up when they scored. I'm not going to lie. I didn't even have any money on it, and I was fired up. It's the national pride thing. 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. Tweet at the show. Let me know what you think at the back page. You got a thought on the World Cup? I want to hear it. 800-224-2004. We will have post-game coverage of the 49ers and Cardinals. Let you know what is being said on the post-game podiums. I'm sure we'll hear from Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm sure we'll hear from Kyle Shanahan. More to do in this hour of the Cash In on SportsMap Radio. Wake up call. $28 past the hour, just about halfway home on a Monday edition of the Cash In on SportsMap Radio and the SportsMap Radio app. The telephone number is 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. My Twitter feed is at the back page. Again, on Twitter, at the back page. I think if I am Justin Fields and I am the Bears organization and Justin Fields is injured, as he is. He was carted off after the end of the loss against the Falcons. He hurt his shoulder. Not a dislocation, according to Pro Football Talk. Non-throwing shoulder. But here's what I do if I'm the Bears at this point. If you don't have to start Justin Fields, you're now out of the mix as it relates to a playoff spot. You're 3-8. There is not going to be a miracle where this team wins its last 6 and makes the playoffs at 9-8. So at this point, the smartest thing for this organization to do, Matt Eberflus, we've started to see the turnaround in the career of Justin Fields. And I know it would be great to watch him continue to grow this season. But you now have the formula. You now have the keys for him to be successful. If I'm the organization, and you know what you need to surround him with, you know you need to go get him more depth in the receiving game. I don't play him the rest of the year. I take the L's. I think the fan base will understand it because they've gotten a taste of what Fields could be. I don't even care that they've lost 4 in a row. Just watch his growth over the last month, and you start to realize this guy could still be our future quarterback. And I know that there's a few quarterbacks out there. I know that there's a few quarterbacks that are going to be in this draft, and maybe the temptation might even be to go and get one of them. And I'm not sure necessarily how I feel about that. But the projected order in the draft right now, Chicago's got the opportunity to get something that's going to improve their team, because right now they're drafting 4th. And I don't think there's any guarantee that Seattle is going to take a quarterback at number 3 with the pick that they get from Denver. So there is a possibility they get, and Chicago, I mean, look, you could wind up with the top pick. You could wind up with the number 1 pick. Who knows? Crazier things have happened. So I watch the remainder of this season. If I'm a Bears fan, I say suck it up. Take the L's. Give Fields a chance with a fresh start next year. I know that's difficult to say to a fan base that has suffered like Bears fans have. But you got a taste. You know he can play this game. I'd give Fields another chance next year. 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. You can tweet at the show, at the back page, again on Twitter, at the back page. We have not done a live bet tonight. We usually do one on the NFL. I did not do one tonight because I did not feel confident that I could give you a winner. And if I don't feel confident I can give you a winner, I'm just not going to give a pick for the sake of giving a pick. Because some of you might run out and take it, and then I'd feel terrible. But what we do have right now is an NBA game between the Clippers and Jazz. 66-56, late stages of the second quarter, and a live total of 236.5. Now, if I were a betting man right now, I'd slam my money on the table and say take the under. And that's what I'm going to tell you to do. Live bet 236.5. Take the under. It just dropped to 234.5. You take it at 234.5 at your own peril. But at 236.5, I would have taken it. I'll still take it at 234.5. Because it went down while I was saying it, I'll take it at 234.5. 8 seconds left in the first half. Clippers lead the Jazz 66-56. Is Kawhi Leonard playing tonight? Do we know? Do we have any updated information about whether or not Kawhi is playing tonight? Because it feels like he's getting back to finally playing basketball. I don't know if they're going to play him too much, though. He is playing tonight. He's played 11 minutes. 1 of 4 from the field, 2 points, 2 assists. And they're still relying on their bench. Norman Powell and John Wall. Boy, has John Wall been good. So 66-56 Clippers on top of the Jazz at the half. We'll see what happens in that game. 234.5 we said to bet it at. That is the number, 234.5 on the live bet for us here on the Cash-In. 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. You can tweet at the show, at the back page. Again, on Twitter, at the back page. Also interesting to note from a social, geopolitical standpoint, human rights standpoint. Anybody who follows soccer knows who Grant Wall is. He is one of the preeminent soccer writers in the world. Used to write for a whole assortment of different outlets. He was with ESPN. He was with, actually, he might not have been with ESPN. I want to make sure I get it right. CBS, Fox Sports, and other outlets. As you know, same-sex marriage and public displays of homosexuality are illegal in Qatar. Although FIFA officials had spoken about the rainbow flag being allowed at the World Cup. Oh, thank you. But Grant Wall was detained as he went into the media entrance to cover the United States-Wales World Cup game earlier today because he was wearing a rainbow soccer ball T-shirt in support of the LGBTQ community. Security guards refused to let him in, detained him for 25 minutes, demanded he remove the T-shirt, one guard forcibly removing his phone from his hands, according to Wall. Andrew Das is a journalist for the New York Times, was detained as well after showing support for Wall. Wall later said in a follow-up tweet he was eventually able to enter the stadium while wearing the shirt, called it an unnecessary ordeal. I got some notes from baseball to get to. Also post-game from the NFL and the Cash-In next.
Again, looking downfield, lofts it near corner. Adams wide open at the 5. He walks in, and the Raiders walk off with a win. Touchdown Davante Adams to win it here in Denver.
Congratulations to the Raiders. I don't know how you leave number 17 wide open. If there's anyone you're going to cover, it's going to be Davante Adams. He's wide open crossing the field, and the Raiders win in a magnificent way. Congratulations.
Derek Carr waited and floated one to the same spot where he threw the first touchdown to Davante today. And in overtime, Link, the Raiders beat the Broncos 22-16.
That's cool.
1st and 10 on the Broncos 35. Carr, play action again, looking downfield, lofts it near corner. Adams wide open at the 5. He walks in, and the Raiders walk off with a win. Touchdown Davante Adams to win it here in Denver.
Congratulations to the Raiders. I don't know how you leave number 17 wide open. If there's anyone you're going to cover, it's going to be Davante Adams. He's wide open crossing the field, and the Raiders win in a magnificent way. Congratulations.
Derek Carr waited and floated one to the same spot where he threw the first touchdown to Davante today. And in overtime, Link, the Raiders beat the Broncos 22-16.
Another week is done in the NFL. Week 11 in the books after a 49ers drubbing of the Cardinals in Mexico City. But don't worry, Week 12 is right around the corner, and that means a chance for you to win tickets for two, $50,000 cash, airfare, hotel. Oh, those tickets for two, by the way, just to the biggest game in football. You know the one. Glendale, Arizona. Takes place in February. Two best teams going toe-to-toe. A zillion people will be watching it on TV, and you could be watching it in person. It's playfortickets.com's Super Pick 7 contest. Here's what you do. Go to playfortickets.com, sign up, it's free. Sign in, it's free. Pick the games, it's free. Free, free, free. And every Sunday of the NFL season, including the playoffs, gives you a chance to win. Couldn't be easier. Here's what you do. Pick the correct side and totals on Sunday, or in this case, some of the games are earlier in the week, but for the case of this conversation, we're talking about the Sunday games. Pick the correct side and totals on Sunday for 7 games. It's that simple. Use your football expertise each week, and you got a chance to win 2 tickets to football's biggest game, February of 2023. $50,000 cash in your pocket, airfare, hotel included. It's called the Super Pick 7 contest. Just go to playfortickets.com, click on the Super Pick 7 contest, pick the games. It's free. What are you waiting for? 21 and over to play. Terms and conditions, they do apply. 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. I'm still all shaken up. I have to ask this of my audience, because I'm always curious to know if I'm on the same page with my audience. Anybody else watch The Walking Dead? Anybody a Walking Dead universe fanatic like me? Maybe? Anybody? Austin, do you watch The Walking Dead? Or by the way, our engineer producer today is Austin Rodriguez working on the show. You could always go back and watch it, man. There's this thing called, like Netflix and all that stuff, and you can actually go back and watch it. I'm getting ready to go back and watch all 11 seasons from the beginning because last night was the series finale. And I watched every single episode. What a legendary show. I don't know how many people watched last night. I'm sure it was a lot. But terrific finale. I'm curious if you watched The Walking Dead, if you enjoyed the finale or not. Do you watch all the spinoffs? See, I watched like the first 3 seasons of Fear the Walking Dead. I'm about 4 seasons behind on that show. There's 2 more shows coming out next year. It's such a good show. I'm a Walking Dead guy. So if you love The Walking Dead, 1-800-224-2004. Let me know what you thought of last night's finale. 800-224-2004. You could tweet at me as well at the back page. And I'm not ashamed to admit I cried a few times in that finale last night. Especially when Rosita, well, I can't say it. I see some. I might be spoiling it for somebody. Spoiler alert, Rosita died. So if you didn't watch it, you can blame me for just telling you that Rosita died. I'm a jerk. What could I say? Some baseball notes to get to. But if you saw The Walking Dead, I want to hear from you. Some baseball notes to get to. A new Hall of Fame ballot was released today. I don't mean new as in different type. I mean the ballot for next year is out. Whole bunch of new names on it. Because a lot of guys have sort of aged out, so to speak. But here is what the new Baseball Hall of Fame ballot looks like. Carlos Beltran, John Lackey, and Jared Weaver are among 14 newcomers to the Baseball Writers Association of America's Hall of Fame ballot. R.A. Dickey, Houston Street, Francisco Rodriguez, Bronson Arroyo, and Matt Cain are also new to the ballot. Jacoby Ellsbury, Jason Worth, Mike Napoli, J.J. Hardy, Johnny Peralta, and Andre Ethier are all new to the ballot. Now, the guy on the ballot that obviously gets the most attention here, that's new to it, is Carlos Beltran. Because Beltran has had, the numbers that certainly would give you at least some pause to consider whether or not he belongs in the Hall of Fame. Hit .279 for his career. 435 home runs, so just shy of that mark, the 500 mark. 2,725 hits, so he's just shy of 3,000 there. I mean, think about it. Fred McGriff had like 499 forever, and it took him, I don't know, did Fred McGriff get in? Hey, Google, is Fred McGriff in the Baseball Hall of Fame?
Sorry, I don't have it.
Oh, come on. You let me down, Google. It's a bad job. I don't know if Fred McGriff got in, if Fred McGriff ever got in or not. I mean, we've seen a number of guys that have just come up short of the requisite numbers and they don't get in. What makes Beltran's case more interesting, though, is that it is the first case of how the Hall of Fame voters are going to treat the Houston Astros team that was busted for the scandal, the trash can banging, all that stuff. It's the first, basically, this is the first sort of test study that we get of the Astros cheating scandal. And I wonder if the combination of Beltran just being short of the numbers and having been busted as part of the Astros cheating scandal and subsequently losing his job as manager of the New York Mets as a result, if that is going to keep Carlos Beltran from getting the votes he needs to get into the Hall of Fame. Scott Rowland, Todd Helton, Billy Wagner are all back on the ballot. Rowland was just short of the number needed for induction last year, 63.2%. I think he was 75% of the vote. And David Ortiz got in with 77.9% of the vote, which was 11 more votes than he needed. Of course, Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, Curt Schilling were dropped after their 10th year on the ballot. A-Rod will be back on the ballot this year, along with Gary Sheffield, Jeff Kent, Andrew Jones, Manny Ramirez, all these guys that are probably never getting in, but are back on the ballot. And here's the reality. As far as the ballot is concerned this year, nobody may get in. The Baseball Writers Association doesn't have to put somebody in the Hall of Fame. The rule is simple. You either get 75% of the vote or you don't. And other than maybe Scott Rowland, you knew, look, Beltran isn't getting in as a first ballot guy anyway. So if Beltran's not getting in first ballot, the discussion on the Astros thing will wait another year. But he wasn't going to get in as a first ballot guy anyway. He's a borderline guy at best. And my philosophy on borderline Hall of Famers is, if it's not definitive, you shouldn't be getting in. I've said this for years about a number of different guys. And it's the same thing with Scott Rowland. I mean, Jack Morris went through this. Jim Rice went through this, where they got in at like the very end when they were basically just about to be off the ballot. You're either a Hall of Famer or you're not. The writers like to play games with this stuff. You're either a Hall of Famer or you're not. Coolest story I may have heard today actually came from the world of baseball. And it has nothing to do with the major leagues. And it may not even be a name you've ever heard. But remember this name, Olivia Pichardo. Olivia Pichardo today became the first woman to make an active NCAA Division I baseball varsity roster. She did it at Brown. She is going to be a freshman utility player. And she did it as a walk-on. Do you know how hard it is to make it onto a team as a walk-on? And then as a woman? She was a pitcher and an outfielder for the U.S. Baseball Women's National Team this past summer. She previously played varsity baseball in Queens, New York, played baseball for the New York Crush and Next Level Baseball. Brown's baseball coach is a guy named Grant Achilles. Boy, what a last name. Achilles. Said he was impressed by Pichardo's athleticism during her initial tryout. Said she had the most complete walk-on tryout that he had ever seen from a player since becoming a head coach. That is amazing. And it got me to wondering, and I want to see what you guys think of this. I'm 45 years old, so if I'm lucky, I got 40 years left. Will we ever see in my lifetime a female Major League Baseball player? We've seen some in like independent minor league ball. But will we see a female play Major League Baseball in my lifetime in the next 40 years? I want to know what you think. 1-800-224-2004. 800-224-2004. I also wonder, we've got women's professional soccer leagues. We've got women's professional hockey leagues. We have women's and the WNBA, Women's National Basketball Association. You got the LPGA Tour. You got women's bowling. You got all these different women's professional leagues. Is it that long before we see a women's professional baseball league? And I know there was one, the League of Their Own. I get it. I'm talking about in these times that we live in now. Could there be a professional women's baseball league on the horizon? Women play baseball. I'm curious to know what people think. And I think about, and I know some people say, well, could women hit home runs in major league ballparks? That sort of conversation. And it's fair to bring up. But there's guys in major league. How many home runs has Terrence Gore hit in his career? Go look at how many guys in Major League Baseball are not power hitters. There's some guys who struggle to hit any home runs. I'm not saying they're the majority of players, but if you got a good women's player, plays defense well, can run, get a few hits, I'm just asking the question, don't shoot the messenger. I think we'll see it in my lifetime. I think we will see a women's Major League Baseball player, a female Major League Baseball player in my lifetime. I don't know when, but it's coming. You're seeing, I think there's now 20 women on college baseball rosters. According to the nonprofit Baseball for All, nearly 20 women have made college baseball rosters this year. But Pichardo is the first to do so at the NCAA Division I level. Let me know what you think. 1-800-224-2004. 800-224-2004. And again, hit me up on Twitter as well, at The Back Page. We'll come back and wrap up the hour next on the Cash In SportsMap Radio. All right, next hour of the show, you'll hear from some of the people involved in this 49ers drubbing of the Cardinals. Cliff Kingsbury, his post-game press conference. We'll get you some of that coming up in the next hour. Plenty to get into from this matchup. But first, I got to talk about my friends, my good friends at Jock Market. Jock MKT. It is the Jock Market. You know about the stock market? Well, this is even better because it's got something that everybody loves, which is the fantasy element of sports. But instead of having to go and take a ton of different players and fill out a roster and hope everybody hits, no. You can just go pick one or two players. I've always dreamed of a stock market for sports, an app that would allow me to blend two of my greatest passions into one. And thanks to Jock MKT, the stock market for sports is officially here. Jock MKT offers live daily markets for sports, lets you buy and sell shares of athletes in real time with other users, all for real money. And each share is a guaranteed payout at the end of the night. I've been on Jock MKT now for a month or so, and I'm counting down the minutes until week 12 in the NFL. Download it, jockmkt.com, or go to the Jock MKT app. Use my deposit code CASHIN, CASHIN, and receive a 100% deposit match up to $100 on your first deposit. Your first market will also be risk-free, with losses refunded up to $100. Go try it out, jockmkt.com or the Jock MKT app. My deposit code CASHIN for a 100% deposit match up to $100. Hour 3, final hour of the Cash-In right around the corner. Post-game from Monday Night Football and more on SportsMap Radio. Final hour of a Monday edition of the show. Thank you for being with us. SportsMap Radio and the SportsMap Radio app. I didn't even get to my biggest baseball item from Monday. I guess I'll have to figure out a way to squeeze it in this hour. In between post-game sound, you'll hear from Cliff Kingsbury, the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals, whose season is basically toast right now. All other post-game sound coming up. A whole bunch of other post-game sound coming up in this hour from the 49ers and Cardinals. And again, Arizona falling in Mexico City tonight to the 49ers. 38-10. No Kyler Murray in this game. Obviously played a big role in the outcome. I mean, it was relatively close in the first half, and then the 49ers, as you would expect, a team of their caliber to do, able to pull away. And again, I look at them and Dallas right now as the teams to beat in the NFC. And I know people say that's crazy considering what the Vikings have done and considering what the Eagles have done. I am not a believer in the Eagles. I am not a believer in the Vikings. And I know Dak Prescott has a lot to prove in the minds of Cowboy fans and football fans around the country. But I look at that defense and I look at that running game. And if there's two things you love late in the season to just wear down an opponent, it travels well no matter what the weather is, defense, and running the football. And by the way, Brent Maher has been out of this world kicking. He had the second best game in the history of fantasy football for a kicker yesterday. Did you see that? He had a 60-yard field goal that he made twice, by the way. Only one of them counted. But he made two 60-yard field goals. Amazing. All right, lots more to do in this hour. Post-game sound from Monday Night Football and more. I'm Jason Page. Nick Ferguson later in the hour, too, on the NFL. It's the Cash In on SportsMap Radio.
But that's a really good team. We knew we'd have to play, as good as we played all year. And I thought they played to make some plays. Obviously, the fourth downs, not getting those hurt us and really put us behind. Thank y'all.
Hey, stop using these for ear cleaning. They're even banned to use in the United Kingdom.
Bo Brock's going to be talking with Cliff Kingsbury on where this team goes from here, who may be healthy or not against.
Moving along on this Monday edition of the show, Nick Ferguson later on in the hour, former NFL safety. Get some thoughts with him on this week 11 in the NFL. Also, what's going on in Denver. Nathaniel Hackett turning over the play calling duties to Clint Kubiak, but also the team releasing Melvin Gordon on Monday after he just continued to have trouble fumbling the football. Our live betting game of the night, for those of you that are into that sort of thing, is the Jazz and the Clippers. How about Utah storming from behind in the third quarter? Jazz lead the Clippers 93-86. We said take the under at 234.5. And right now, that's not looking very good when you look at the score. You don't have to be a mathematician or a wizard or a genius of any kind to figure out. That's not very good. So we will keep our eyes on that game, and we'll see how we do. The phone number, as always, 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. And again, you can tweet at the show at the back page. Again, hit me up on Twitter at the back page. We're keeping an eye on the post game from the 49ers and the Cardinals. We'll hear from the head coach, Kyle Shanahan. We'll hear from Cliff Kingsbury as well. The game being held in Mexico City, the fifth game there basically in the last 17 years, I believe. So certainly the NFL trying its best to create a presence in Mexico City, and there's talk of wanting to put a team there. I mean, that's pretty interesting when you think about where this league is right now and the idea of potentially having a franchise in Mexico City someday. Could happen. All right, post-game sound. Colt McCoy, who quarterbacked this team with Kyler Murray, unable to play tonight. And McCoy had his struggles. Obviously, it's a difficult spot going up against a good 49ers defense. Let's hear what Colt McCoy had to say post-game after a 49ers 38-10 win in Mexico City over the Cardinals.
Approach now going forward with the weeks running out with what you got left.
Yeah, we just got to put our best foot forward. We know it's a short week. And figure out a way to get a win before the bye. That's really our only focus and our only goal.
Victor Del Rio from Deportes. How do you feel about this opportunity to stay in this atmosphere? This game is different for you and for all of guys. How do you feel about the game, about the people, about the crowd? I don't know. How do you feel about this opportunity?
Yeah, I thought the atmosphere was awesome. What a wonderful place to be able to play. We've been here for 2 days. The people have been super nice. It's just a bummer we didn't find a way to win that game, but San Francisco played hard. They're a good football team, and we just didn't make enough plays. So, but for the crowd, for the atmosphere, being able to play internationally in Mexico City, I thought it was fantastic.
You obviously don't want to see Rondale get hurt, but it seemed like Greg picked up the slack pretty well tonight.
Yeah, guys stepped up. Rondale had a big part of the plan. So when he goes down first play of the game, that's tough. But I thought Dortch did a really nice job of stepping in, and there were some timing things that he hadn't really had reps on during the week that Rondale had all the reps. But Greg Dortch is a great football player. I know Kyler trusts him. I know I trust him. He brings a lot of juice to our football team, and I thought he did a really nice job stepping up.
You took some hits. Did you get banged up there at the end, or are you okay?
Yeah, I should be all right. Yeah, I think when you play a team like the 49ers, and you just have a little room for error, and we had some penalties in key spots. We turned the ball over, and when you do that against a good football team who's moving the ball well, it hurts you. And so I thought we fought. I thought we competed. I thought I didn't think that the Niners confused me one time tonight. I knew what they were doing. They showed me a lot of different looks, and so that's a bummer, right? We feel pretty good about it, but we just didn't make enough plays. No, I know the 49ers fans travel well. They were pretty loud. We went on the silent count most of the night. But it was a really cool stadium and a really cool experience.
Hey, this is Ricardo Vaquier from Mexican Media, Medio Tiempo. Did you expect the Mexican audience to be so heavily involved in the game and to know so well the rules?
All right, so you're getting a lot of questions from the Mexican media, and not to dismiss them, but there's only so many questions I'm going to listen to of, hey, did the fans get you all riled up? You can only ask that question so many times. And then I'm like, all right, you're done. I get it. Mexican fans like NFL football. Okay, great. Carry on. Let's talk about the game. It's just, my God. How many questions are they going to ask about the atmosphere in Mexico City? Ask about the fact that nobody could breathe because the games are played at such a high altitude. See, that to me is an interesting aspect, much like Denver. A very interesting aspect of playing football games in Mexico City is the altitude. It's very similar to that of Denver. And that's going to be something that when we talk about the idea of putting a franchise there, and, look, if you're the home team, you adjust to it. But if you're the road team having to come in there and play a game, not to mention the travel aspect of it, but it's going to be tough. If you're a Northeast team and you got to travel to Mexico City for a game, not going to be fun. I can promise you. Here's Cliff Kingsbury, couple of post-game minutes with him.
To make some plays, obviously the fourth downs, not getting those hurt us and really put us behind. The interception there was tough, but that's a really good team. We knew we'd have to play, as good as we played all year, and I thought they played really physical in that second half and found a way to make plays.
Nice to meet you, Victor Del Rio from Deportes. How do you feel about the atmosphere, the people in Mexico? This experience for you and for the team?
Yeah, the atmosphere was incredible. They put on a great game, and the entire weekend was spectacular. I wish we could have performed better, but yeah, that was a great atmosphere for football.
Cliff, did you feel like the altitude started affecting especially the defense in the second half?
I didn't. Everybody was tired. I think both teams, you could see, were getting winded at times, but it wasn't anything that I felt like was game-changing.
How's Rondale Moore?
You will have to check it out. It was some sort of growing. Obviously tough losing him that early, but hopefully it won't be too long term. Yeah, we got to flush it, and we got a short week with the Chargers coming in. So that's what we talked about. We know we got to play a lot better, got to improve in a lot of areas in a short time. It's going to be a lot of mental preparation going into Sunday's game before our bye, so we've got to find a way to get it corrected.
Did you feel like their first possession of the second half took something out of you?
I thought they had a great drive, obviously a great play call there, but we got to find a way to respond. I think even then it's 20 to whatever, 10 or 24-10. You're in the game, and I didn't think offensively we were able to come back and respond the way we needed to. Thank you. All
right, there you go. Cliff Kingsbury post-game after a difficult loss for the Cardinals, 38-10 in Mexico City. 49ers right there really right now with the Seattle Seahawks. Atop the NFC West, and those teams will battle it out down the stretch. They're both 6-4 now. San Francisco, very quietly, has won 3 games in a row. And they don't give up a lot of points. They're not going to score a ton tonight, notwithstanding. But you can't help but think San Francisco and Dallas. I'm telling you, if you're being objective about it, I know the Eagles have added some help on defense in the last week. But unless you believe that Jalen Hurts has really made this quantum leap from, quarterback that was eliminated early last year in the postseason to a guy that's going to carry this team past Dallas and San Francisco, I'm just not there. I'm not there with the Eagles, and I'm sure as hell not there with the Vikings, who have played 3 tough games this year and gotten dusted in 2 of them. 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004 on Twitter at the back page. We got a lot more to do in this hour. We'll hear from Nick Ferguson, who does a great job on the NFL. He is a former NFL safety, host of the Touchdown Denver podcast. We'll get some thoughts with him on the Broncos and the league at large as we continue. That coming up about 17 minutes from now. More post-game as we continue as well on the Cash-In at SportsMap Radio. 1-800-224-2004 is the phone number. 800-224-2004. If you feel inclined to tweet at us, you can do that too at the back page. Again, on Twitter, at the back page. 49ers doing what they're supposed to do tonight. Got the victory in Mexico City against a banged-up Cardinals team that's just trying to hold it together as much as they can. Again, I don't know if Cliff Kingsbury gets sort of a mulligan on this season because now the injury to Kyler Murray, but this team wasn't going to the playoffs whether Kyler Murray was there or not. Keep an eye on our NBA live bet of the night. Utah and the Clippers, we said take the under at 234.5. And right now in the fourth quarter with 7:35 to go, the game is at 200. Dead on the number. 101.99 Utah leading the Clippers. I'll tell you, Utah has not gotten the menu. Utah has not gotten the memo yet that they're not supposed to be good. It's amazing what the Jazz continue to do this season. And again, when push comes to shove, I don't even think they're a playoff team. Eventually, I just don't imagine this holding up. But Utah 12-6 coming into tonight. And after looking like they were starting to fade a little bit, they've won 2 straight coming into this game tonight. And they can score in a league that's rife with scoring. They are the second highest scoring team in the Western Conference right now, behind only Sacramento. Of all the teams in the league, Sacramento is leading the league in scoring, and they're 9-6, and they've won 6 in a row. I don't see any post-game sound coming out of Mexico City on the 49ers. If something pops before we get to Nick Ferguson here 10 minutes from now, I will obviously pop it on and get it for you guys. We didn't do any college football tonight. I promise we will do it tomorrow. I wanted to devote as much time to the NFL as I could. We will get into the college football tomorrow. A bonkers weekend. 2 wild finishes. One at TCU. TCU and Baylor in one of them. And then the crazy finish between Michigan and Illinois. Both edge-of-your-seat finishes. Both teams in the top 4 in the college football playoff, and both obviously are going to remain in the top 4 for the college football playoff. Tennessee, their season is done. Hendon Hooker was lost for the season, their stud quarterback, as they lost yesterday. And again, there is all sorts of potential chaos when you look at the college football playoff rankings right now, because that loss for Tennessee now opens the door for USC. I mean, USC now at 10-1 on the season got a victory over their rival UCLA, and USC is probably the next team up. I mean, heck, if USC loses another game, if you wind up with a bunch of 2-loss teams, I still don't think it's possible. You're still going to wind up Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, TCU. Could a 1-loss TCU be supplanted by a 2-loss team? That's what I'm interested to see. If TCU loses, because there's obviously a lack of respect there for this team throughout the season. If TCU should fall and suffer a loss sometime between, here in the last, what do they got? One more game left, I think. TCU has Iowa State next week, and then the conference championship game. And that's it. So you'd think they'll take care of Iowa State, that game in Texas. I mean, that's the only real. I mean, you're obviously going to have a situation where Michigan or Ohio State loses because of the obvious fact that they play against each other. But with one loss, does USC potentially jump in? If Michigan, here's the thing. If Ohio State beats Michigan, I know both their schedules ain't great, but if Ohio State beats Michigan, USC probably jumps into the top 4, which is crazy to think. But if Michigan beats Ohio State, is Ohio State viewed so favorably that they would keep Ohio State as a one-loss team over one-loss USC? And you go look at the USC, schedule this year and who they've beaten. 22nd ranked Oregon State. 14th ranked Utah is their one loss. The victory over number 17 UCLA, 48-45. It was basically whoever has the ball last. And obviously USC still has one game where they can be tripped up, and just ask Clemson because it happened to them, and that's Notre Dame next week at the Rose Bowl. So nothing is settled for USC in terms of their ability to try and win out here. But there's still, I'm telling you, that 4th spot, you feel good about Georgia. Even if they were to suffer a loss, you feel good about Georgia. And I think Ohio State, despite the fact that their schedule, like I said, if you match it up with Michigan, it's not much better. I mean, Ohio State beat Notre Dame in the opener 21-10. They beat Penn State 44-31. Now, if you're looking for style points, there ain't a ton of them in there. But I think some of this will sort itself out this weekend with Michigan traveling to Columbus for the biggest game of probably the college football season to date with Michigan and Ohio State. 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. Hit me up on Twitter as well, at the back page. And what could be the final season for Jim Harbaugh at Michigan? We talk about Sean Payton over and over and over again as it relates to, coming out of his quick retirement from the situation in New Orleans. But Jim Harbaugh is going to be another name that people are going to be talking about as it relates to a return to the NFL. I'm sure that in his mind, he still feels like he has something to prove. You hear me say it all the time on this show, though. Sequels are never very good. There's very few examples you can give me. I'm not talking about like franchises like Star Wars or the Marvel movies. There's very few examples of sequels being very good. Especially when it comes to head coaches. And I can go through numerous examples. Now, how did it end with the White Sox and Tony La Russa? The sequel all these years later. Billy Martin countless times with the Yankees. Sequels just generally aren't as good as the first time around. There's water under the bridge. Harbaugh back in the NFL next year? We'll see. 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. Tweet at the show, at the back page if you got a thought, on Twitter, at the back page. Our live bet tonight, 4:16 to go in the 4th. They're at 216 points, 234.5 is our bet. Will we finish under? We'll see. Nick Ferguson on the other side from the Touchdown Denver podcast, former NFL safety. We'll get into some Broncos stuff with him, some other NFL items as well. I'm Jason Page, and this is The Cash In on SportsMap Radio. All right, you got it all on your end, right? Cool. Thank you. If you hear audio on my end, it's just me feeding my video feed, so don't worry about it.
Sports talk, only better. The Cash In with Jason Page continues on the SportsMap Radio Network.
We roll along on this Monday edition of the show. And remind you, if you haven't done so yet, go and sign up for playfortickets.com. Playfortickets.com, free to play, free to sign up, free to try it out, and free potentially 2 tickets to the biggest game in football and $50,000 cash in your pocket. All you got to do is go to playfortickets.com, click on the Super Pick 7 contest, easy for me to say, and all you got to do is pick the correct side and totals on Sunday for 7 games. It's that simple. Use your football expertise each week to have a chance to win 2 tickets to football's biggest game in Glendale, Arizona this February. $50,000 cash in your pocket, 21 and over to play. Terms and conditions apply here on the Cash In. All right, let's bring in Nick Ferguson, who does a terrific job. The Touchdown Denver podcast, all things football with him. Oh, well, somebody had to pay the price for the latest Broncos loss, and apparently it was Melvin Gordon.
Well, yeah, this was a long time coming because Melvin has put the ball on the turf several times, and these have all been in key situations. Go back to how the Broncos started off the season, and with Russell Wilson returning to Emerald City, and the Broncos had an opportunity to put that game away 2 times in the red zone, 2 fumbles, and Melvin Gordon was on the end of one of those fumbles. And then you go back to the game yesterday against the Raiders, and it seemed as though the deck was stacked against Melvin, and maybe at times he was pressing a little, but sometimes, it's bad luck. He caught a pass out of the backfield, and he bobbled that reception, and then there was a pickup that both he and Cam Fleming missed on Max Crosby, which got Russell Wilson sacked. So you had that, to add to the list of things, and then with the Broncos threatening right before halftime, knowing as though they were going to get the ball back and they could have gone up, 17-7 on the Raiders. He put the ball on the turf. Quinn Miners jumps on it. Right after that, the field goal is blocked. Even though the field goal being blocked wasn't his fault, some fans still blame it on him because if he scores or he holds on to the ball, the Broncos are never in that situation. So just tough outing for Melvin Gordon. I hope he lands on his feet because he's a good guy.
Let me ask you something. I wasn't even going to ask you this, but I'm just thinking about it as you're talking about Melvin Gordon being let go. What's that feel like? What does it feel like to be let go?
It's not a great feeling because, for Melvin, you can see the writing on the wall. It was just a matter of when it was going to happen based on the number of running backs that the Broncos actually brought in. But to experience that, man, it's a tough deal because it's one thing to experience that being released during like the preseason or something like that because you know that it's going to happen. You just figure that once you make it to the regular season, man, it's all pieces of cream from there. But to have someone call you on the phone, knowing as though it's an off day, and you're thinking, okay, why are they calling my? And it's like, hey, Jason, hey, how's it going? Because it always starts off like with right. So they got to soften you up before they deliver the final blow. And it's like, hey, Jason, how's it going? Hey, what are you up to? Okay, listen, we're going to need you to stop by the facility. Coach wants to have a conversation with you. Usually when you hear that and it's an off day, you pretty much know what's going on. So you playing or you going through it over your mind like, okay, what are they going to say? Are they going to give me another chance? Are they going to demote me? But being fired is the ultimate demotion, and it absolutely stings, man. Your heart goes from your chest to the floor, and you're sitting there right across the table from your head coach, or maybe and both, Mike, let me set it up this way. Their desk is higher than yours, right? So you already walk in with looking really smaller to them, and then they deliver that news, and you shrink in your seat because you're just like, man, you know, I thought I was going to be able to turn it around. But these are the things that happen when you're on a struggling team and you continue to fumble the ball.
You know, I'll tell you what. About 4 years ago, roughly, I was working at a radio station in San Francisco, and new management came in, and I was the last person hired by the old program director. New PD comes in. He gave me about 2 weeks. Couple of shows, and I knew before, you know, even anybody told me, I knew that I was going to be let go. The last hire of the old regime always gets cut, and I literally got cut. I literally got hired the day the PD got fired.
No.
Oh yeah, I got hired the day I went in to go sign my papers. They said, "Oh, he's not here anymore." The broadcasting business is awful. But so 2 weeks went by, and not to equate this to sports, but I get a call on a day I'm not working. Hey, we need you to come into the office. You know, Matt wants to talk to you. So I I beat them all to the punch. Here's what I did. I got into the building. I walked around the building and said all my goodbyes because I knew what was coming. So I went in, saw all my friends, all my peeps there. I walked in, I said bye to everybody because I knew the second I went into that conference room, they were going to let me go and escort me out the building. So I said, I'm going to go say goodbye to everybody now because I know what's coming. And they were all like, what are you talking about? They had no idea I was being let go, but I knew. So I walked into the conference room. They let me go. Sure as you're born. So I kind of get it. I've been in that position a couple times in my career, 25 years. So Nathaniel Hackett, is he the captain jumping ship on the Titanic, or is he, you know, rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic by giving up the play calling responsibilities? What is it?
Well, at this point, he is rearranging the chairs on the deck. The ship is sinking. And he's still trying to show, okay, well, I'm in charge and I'm delegating responsibilities to individuals, knowing that, hey, catastrophe is waiting around the corner. So right now, he decided to hand over play calling responsibilities to Clint Kubiak. Now, I'll say this. I figured that Clint Kubiak should have been named the offensive coordinator from the outset, and here's why. When you think about what Clint Kubiak was able to do with Kirk Cousins in 2021, to me, the proof was in the pudding. Kirk Cousins threw for more than 3,000 yards. Dalvin Cook was over, maybe 1,500 yards, maybe 1,200 yards on the ground, and he had some pass reception touchdowns as well. So here's a guy who went from being a quarterback coach, working with Kirk Cousins, to being the offensive coordinator. And oh, by the way, there's not a person who's more familiar with this system than Clint Kubiak, because when his dad was the offensive coordinator, he was the quarterback's coach. And I know, I get it. When you think about Nathaniel Hackett, he was in Green Bay as the offensive coordinator. I'm giving you air quotes, whereas Matt LaFleur. But Matt LaFleur was calling the play. So when we look at where the Broncos are now, it's like, okay, well, what's going on with the play calling and the design? And can you make in-game adjustments? And this is where Coach Hackett needs to just you know what? Just be a head coach. Because head coaches who try to be the defensive coordinator, like Vic Fangio did, he wasn't paying attention to the offense, and his clock management was terrible. The same thing is happening with Nathaniel Hackett. So the idea is, you are a head coach. Delegate responsibilities and lean on your coaches.
Nick Ferguson, our guest, former NFL safety, host of the Touchdown Denver podcast, knows what it's like to be released. So do we all. Gives us a few minutes here on the show today. I have declared in the first segment of the show tonight, I have declared that through week 11, the two best teams in the NFL, out of the AFC, it's Kansas City, and out of the NFC, I'm going with Dallas. Agree or disagree? Yes, I think it is. I think it is Dallas in the NFC, and I'm projecting ahead, but I actually think they're going to get better because I think OBJ is going there. If his two choices for teams right now are the Giants or the Cowboys, and he's choosing anybody other than Dallas, he should have his head examined, because there ain't no way you want Daniel Jones throwing you the football, because he can't throw you the football. He's too busy throwing it to the other team yesterday.
Wait a minute. So this turnaround, because last time I was on the show, we were talking about the team that's the creme de la creme of the NFC was the Minnesota Vikings, right? Now it's because the Vikings laid an egg to the Cowboys. Now you're going, hey, I'm waving the banner for the Cowboys who lost the previous week to the Green Bay Packers, and everyone was like, what's going on with Dak Prescott?
I got two things for you here. One, Minnesota, I wasn't sold on until they won last week. And it took me, till they were 8-1 or whatever it was to be sold on them. But then I said, I want to see there were so many interesting bounce back games that I wanted to see this week. I wanted to see how the Eagles bounced back against Indianapolis. I wasn't impressed. They barely got out of there with a win. I wanted to see how the Cowboys bounced back off the game against the Packers.
Right.
And then I wanted to see how the Vikings and Bills bounced back off of that game. Buffalo showed you they're still for real. And the Vikings the Vikings have played 3 good teams this year, and they've been dusted by 2 of the 3. So I'm sorry, I just can't go there with the Vikings. I think Dallas and San Francisco, I'll still stick with those 2 teams that I think, if healthy, I think those 2 teams are the 2 most dangerous teams to come out of the NFC.
So because with Dallas, obviously Dak had a better game, but more importantly, you look at Tony Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott. Both guys were great on the ground, but Tony Pollard continues to impress, showing as though he can catch the ball out of the backfield as an extra wide receiver. Because when I look at the Cowboys, that's the one thing I feel as though they're deficient on. As far as wide receivers, outside of CeeDee Lamb, it's like, who else do you have? And you're right. If they add OBJ, a healthy OBJ to the mix, and he's able to kind of understand the philosophy of the offense, now it definitely makes them somewhat of a threat. But I don't know if I'm ready to commit fully to the Cowboys. See, right now, you're sounding just like Jerry Jones is whispering in your ear right now. That's what it sounds. He's whispering sweet nothings in your ear.
All right, but wait a second. If I forced you to pick one team from each conference right now, who are you picking?
Well, you know what? I'm still going to go with Minnesota because they show that they...
No!
But wait, just one game. Right now,
their defense is terrible.
Right, okay. But once again, it's like, can you outscore the opponent? And what we've seen from Minnesota, they were able to go toe-to-toe with Buffalo. Like you said, Buffalo is probably your team in the AFC.
Kansas City. It's Kansas City.
Right, you take Kansas City over Buffalo?
Yes, I do.
Wow.
Especially if they have home field.
Well, see, I'm thinking Buffalo's going to have home field because Buffalo already beat Kansas City.
Yeah, but they have 3 losses. Kansas City's only got 2, and Kansas City's playing in a garbage conference. I don't know. I'm just saying.
Well, that makes things interesting. Let's take an argument. Let's say Buffalo has to return to Kansas City, right? They already know they should have beat Kansas City last year. They went in Kansas this year, and they beat them again. So they have no fear. The only idea is that, hey, you finally need your defense to get you 1 or 2 stops in that game, and you lean heavily on the run game of Josh Allen, and you win the ball game. I'm still going to go with Buffalo. Because
right now it's Buffalo and Minnesota for you. Minnesota. Oh, not Minnesota.
That's one game, man. Just one game. Now, come next week, this may be a different discussion because now we're trying to see if Minnesota can pick up the pieces like Dallas picked up the pieces after losing to Green Bay. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah. By the way, San Francisco is dusting Arizona tonight. Nick Ferguson, listen, I enjoyed it. Have a great week. Now I may have to call you. I've been trying to only call you every couple of weeks because I don't want to bother you too much. But now that you said next week it might be a different story, now I might have to call you next week to see if it is indeed a different story.
Well, you know what? The one thing about the NFL from week to week, every team writes a different story. So call me next week. The narrative has changed, and now you're back on the Minnesota bandwagon after some catastrophe happens with the Dallas Cowboys. Who knows? It's possible.
Have a happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy it. Hope all is well with the family. Thank you, sir.
All right. Same to you.
Nick Ferguson joining us on the show. We'll come back and wrap up the hour next.
Just saying.
The live bet lost by a half a friggin' point. 121, 114. That's why I said 236.5. It was good. 234.5. It wasn't. Yeah. One. Hey, maybe we'll see Aaron Judge while we're in San Francisco. He's staying at the St. Regis. Right near, down the street from Union Square. One final note to leave you with, and that is from the world of Major League Baseball. Aaron Judge, a Bay Area native who the Giants highly covet in free agency. Aaron Judge landed in San Francisco today, is reportedly staying at the St. Regis Hotel in San Francisco, where I'll be right down the street from on Thursday. Going into the Bay Area for 4 days for a little Thanksgiving getaway. Aaron Judge is there, and reportedly the Giants are meeting him there to make their pitch. Here's the advice I would give to the Giants in the 35 or 40 seconds I have left in the show. If you're going to get Aaron Judge, which I don't think they are, but if they are going to get Aaron Judge, the only way it happens is if they don't let him leave San Francisco without getting a deal done. That's the only way. They will have to blow him away and get him to sign before he flies back to New York. Because the moment he leaves, their chance to land him just ended. In other words, they will have hit the shot that takes them out of the money. Because once Judge goes back to New York and gets in front of the Yankees, they're going to give him basically whatever he wants. They're going to match whatever offer the Giants put on the table. It's going to wrap it up for us. Thank you to producer, engineer Austin Rodriguez for working on the show tonight. We're back tomorrow night, 10 p.m. Eastern on SportsMap Radio. I'm Jason Page. Bye! Austin for the podcast. Nick Ferguson. My monologue on the World Cup and my first segment about the NFL in the first hour. Got it? Thank you. Bye. All right. All right. For those watching on the stream, that does it for me. I'll catch you back here on Tuesday night. Hope you all have a great night wherever you are. We'll do some college football on the show tomorrow night. My dog is looking at me funny, which means he wants to be taken out. Want to get on camera, Dookie? Should I put you on camera? Can I put you on camera? Can we do it? Can we do it? There we go. There. Without putting you in it. There. Now you're not in it. There he is! There he is, the Dukester! What's up, Papa Dukes? You ready to go out? Is that a yes? You want to go out? We'll see you all back here tomorrow, everybody.